Hey, what's going on guys? Arekkz here, welcome back to another Division 2 video, and today I want to talk about damage. How you can maximize your damage potential, your damage output in-game. There's loads of different things to consider when it comes to gear talents, weapon talents, mods, brand sets, bonuses. There's a lot of information, so in this video I'm going to break it down into 4 handy tips to help you improve your damage. So if you do enjoy this, then a like would be super appreciated. Comment down below if you have any questions, and of course if you haven't entered our giveaway for a chance to win a Pokemon Let's Go Nintendo Switch, be sure to click the link in the description box down below. Now to begin with, it is of course worth calling out, there are plenty of different ways to play the game. It doesn't always have to be about damage. There are support playstyles, there are more tanky playstyles, there's lots of cool skills and abilities to mess around with, and if that's your preferred playstyle, that's completely cool. But if you are someone that just wants to put out as much damage as possible, then here's a few things you want to consider. First one is of course weapon and gear talents. If you play Division 1, this is not new to you. However, if you are new in Division 2, then this is of course one of the things you factor in when constructing your build. When you have weapons and gear of higher rarities, they roll with talents, and these will have different bonuses. Some of them are more utility, some of them more support focused, and some of them are essentially flat damage boosts. And there's a lot of ones to look through, however, there are a few picked out in this video that you should definitely consider checking out and keep an eye out for when you are choosing your gear pieces. On the weapon front, there's 5 worth calling out here. You have Breadbasket, Close and Personal, Killer, Perpetuation, and Strained. With Breadbasket, landing a body shot adds a stack of bonus 5% headshot damage to the next headshot for 10 seconds, and you have a maximum stack of 10. Close and Personal is where killing a target within 7 meters grants 50% weapon damage for 5 seconds. Good for those of you that want to be up close and personal, kind of like me, that Rambo playstyle. That's handy. You have Killer, where killing an enemy with a critical hit grants 50% critical hit chance for 5 seconds. Perpetuation is where headshot kills grant 5% skill duration, ammo, and charges to the next skill used, maximum stack of 10. And you also have Strained, a rather interesting one. 10% critical hit damage is gained for every 5% of your armor that is depleted. So while this does essentially put you in a rather glass cannon situation, essentially while you're losing health, you're doing more damage. So for those of you guys that really want to kind of go all out and be Rambo, then this definitely has some value. On the gear front, there's another 5 worth calling out. You've got Berserk, Surgical, Hard Hitting, Critical, and Precise. Berserk gives you 10% weapon damage for every 10% of max armor depleted, so of course that synergizes incredibly nicely with Strained since both of those talents revolve around losing your armor. You have Surgical, which is just a flat 8% critical hit chance. You have Hard Hitting, which is plus 15% damage to elites. Critical, plus 8% critical hit damage, and Precise, which is plus 15% headshot damage. So, as you can see, there are a few options there that basically just give you flat damage boosts based on your playstyle. However, there is of course a very nice synergy there. As mentioned, Berserk and Strained go very nicely together since they both revolve around armor depletion. And of course, if you're playing this in say like a PvP situation, where you may well be going one-on-one with a target and you may be losing your health, then generally speaking, if you've got these stacked, then as you are getting weaker, you're also getting stronger. You can also then pair this with something like Surgical, given that sometimes in order to unlock the Strained or the Berserk talents, you need to distribute your attributes in such a way that you often lose some of your crit hit chance, so Surgical often allows you to just boost that in the process. And while yes, as mentioned, there are plenty of different talents to choose from, and of course you can pick and choose them based on your build, these are definitely a few you should keep an eye out for if damage is your thing. Moving on from there to point number 2, and that is stats and stat stacking. There are plenty of stats in the Division 2. There are so many numbers, so many stats, it can be quite daunting. And even on the damage front alone, there are 8 different stats to go through. You have weapon damage, weapon type damage, headshot damage, critical hit damage, damage to elites, enemy armor damage, health damage, and out of cover damage. That's a lot. So very quickly, to go through a few things you want to know, weapon damage increases damage to all of your weapons. Meanwhile, weapon type damage, so things like assault rifle damage, shotgun damage, SMG damage, they increase damage for that specific weapon type. Headshot damage, it's important to note if you're new in Division 2, is different to critical hit damage. You have headshot damage, which increases the damage when landing headshots, meanwhile critical hit damage increases damage when you get a critical hit. They can be different things. You have damage to elites, which increases damage to enemies with yellow health bars. Enemy armor damage increases damage dealt to the enemy armor bar. Health damage increases damage to an enemy HP bar, so once you've stripped the armor, that's of course what you have below there. And of course, out of cover damage increases damage to enemies that are not in cover. Now when it comes to stacking these, quite simply, the easiest way to break it down is that if you have the same stat, they stack additively. So if you have 2 sets of weapon damage, you add them together, that's your bonus. Meanwhile, if you have separate stats, they are instead multiplicative. So if you have like weapon damage and headshot damage, they're not additive, they are multiplicative. There are, however, a couple of exceptions to this, being weapon damage and weapon type damage, since they are essentially very similar, so those two do stack in an additive nature, as do critical hit damage and headshot damage. So these are, again, bonuses you want to keep an eye out for when it comes to thinking about your damage output. Now, on top of that, the other factor, of course, new thing in Division 2 are brand sets. We will, of course, be getting gear sets as well when it comes to World Tier 5, but initially, right now, you have access to brand sets. And when you have these and you equip them and you equip different pieces, you unlock different set bonuses. Some of the brand sets have some pretty broad and more utility-focused attributes. Meanwhile, some of them are, again, a lot more damage-focused. So to call out some of the ones you want to keep an eye out for, you have Douglas and Harding. Now, this one here as a whole set, in fact, all 3 set bonuses are actually pretty good. So you could even get the complete set for this one. You have 5% accuracy, 10% crit hit damage, and 7% crit hit chance. So as a whole set, Douglas and Harding is very good, and factor in you will encounter brand sets from a very early stage in the game, so this isn't something you have to consider just at endgame. This is something you can even take advantage of as you're playing throughout the game. You also have Sokolov of Concern, which gives you plus 10% SMG damage on the 1-piece set bonus and plus 8% crit hit damage on the 2-piece bonus. I probably wouldn't bother going all the way into the 3-piece, simply because Seeker Skill Power, unless it's your skill of choice, isn't really going to benefit you too greatly, so this is definitely one of those ones where you could grab the first 2 pieces in your build. For Wyvern Wear, the first piece of the set bonus gives you plus 7% critical hit damage. Meanwhile, you have to go all the way to the 3-piece set bonus to get plus 10% crit hit chance. But it does also mean you're picking up drone power in the same place, so Wyvern Wear is probably one of those ones where I would just grab one single piece. Araldi Holdings, you get 10% accuracy on the first piece set bonus, 10% headshot damage on the second, and 10% marksman rifle damage on the third. So if you are a sniper, and you are running with snipers, this, as a whole brand set, is actually pretty potent. On top of that, a few other ones worth calling out simply for their individual set bonuses. Petrov Defense, the first piece gives you plus 10% LMG damage, so if you were running LMGs, you might just want to grab one piece of Petrov. The Badger Tough gives you plus 7% damage to elites, again for your first piece set bonus, so if you are putting together a PvE build, you might want to grab that. For Providence Defense, it's probably not worth it really, because you have to go all the way to a 3-piece or a flat 5% weapon damage. That's quite a bit of commitment, so you could probably skip over that. You have the Fenris Group AB for plus 10% assault rifle damage on your first piece set bonus if you're going to be using it. And you also have Overlord Armaments, will give you plus 10% rifle damage, again, for a single piece. So what you really want to do is look at your build, work out where you can fill some gaps, work out what you're going to be using, and pick some brand sets that match up with your playstyle. Just keep in mind that one of the nice things about them is that a lot of the time, individual pieces can still provide great value. So sometimes your final build may well be like 3-1-1-1 to give you some interesting bonuses. Then finally, the last thing worth talking about is of course juggling your build. Sometimes when you want to unlock skills and talents, you of course need to drop certain attributes in order to unlock them, and sometimes by doing this it means swapping out gear pieces, which also means sometimes you lose some of the damage focused stats that you would otherwise have pursued. So often you can then circumvent this by throwing on weapon mods and also gear mods. You collect plenty of these as you're playing throughout the game. Don't forget that as you get rarer pieces of gear, you will of course have access to gear mod slots. You can then throw things in here, and often these will just give you flat damage boosts. There'll be weapon damage, there'll be headshot damage, there'll be crit hit damage. There are plenty of these to choose from, so again, if you are having to make some sacrifices in order to unlock weapon and gear talents, don't forget you can often circumvent that by using these mods. So that is pretty much it. Those are 4 handy tips you might want to keep in mind when trying to maximize your damage output in-game. Hopefully you guys found this helpful. If you have any questions, by all means drop them down in the comments below, and otherwise be sure to keep it locked for plenty more Division coverage. Thanks very much for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you want to check out some more awesome stuff from us here at Arekkz Gaming, then you should definitely try to catch TwoSixNine and Paradise Central streaming 6 days a week. You can find a link to the multi-stream in the description box down below. They play a wide range of games, and what's more, we also have the end game store. By watching their streams, you earn currency, and you can redeem that currency on the end game store for really cool prizes. Those can range from things like games, comics, and figures, all the way up to controllers, capture cards, and even consoles. So definitely drop by and become part of the community. Of course, if you enjoyed this video, then make sure you're subscribed and be sure to click on that little bell icon to turn on notifications so you don't miss our next upload. You can watch more videos by clicking on the options here, but once again, thanks very much for watching, take it easy, catch you next time, peace out.